we do not have scientists really engaging the public in this manner. And as we know, beekeeping is something that is really very important in terms of economy, in terms of human health. So this is one of the very good things that
Okay. Doctor, you have to unmute yourself. I think you've been muted by accident.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So is everyone hearing me, I think?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good, good. So we can go on to the next slide. Yes, as we know, honey is really very important to human beings, and it's not the use of honey by human beings is not a recent phenomenon. It started many, many years ago, as you can see from the picture here. This is actually a rock painting from several rock paintings. Somebody needs to mute his microphone.
Yes, can everyone that's not, apart from Dr. Emuobosa, please go on mute? That way we can hear and benefit better from.
Okay, okay. So as I was saying, that human use of honey has been for a very long time. And our earliest ancestors represented this in rock art paintings. As you can see from these representations, we have rock arts from several parts of the world. We have the earliest is from Spain. We have another from Zimbabwe, the Matopo Hills. We have in in Egypt. So human beings have always loved honey, and human beings, of course, appreciated the benefits of honey. But much more than that, we would really want to have honey readily because of its benefits. If we can go on to the next slide, I will just talk a bit about its benefits. If we have honey that is so good to humans, is it possible for us to have it all the time, or at least it's readily available, rather than we having it only when we go to the caves or go to trees to harvest them? So the composition of honey is basically on the slide. We have honey is made up of glucose and fructose. Then we also have sucrose, which is just about 10%, water, and we have some enzymes. Of course, honey is, surprisingly, it's carbohydrates, zero fats. It has some protein, and of course, zero alcohol. So you see, it's a very good food resource for not just for our earliest ancestors, but for us. And I think this is one of the reasons why our earliest ancestors were healthier than us, because they never had access to refined sugar as we do now. They were always eating, feeding on honey. And the other syrup they had were from fruits, maybe mangoes, oranges, and so on. So the benefits of honey, as we know, these benefits have been scientifically proven. I know there are other kinds of benefits elsewhere, but these 5 here, antibacterial properties, soothing properties, natural medicine, beauty products, food and drink, processing, these have been proven to be very good benefits of honey, you know, and you can see a pictorial representation of the composition. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So it will surprise us to see that honey comes in different colors, really. The picture here shows several kinds of honey. So one of the questions that will come to your mind is, why does honey vary in color and taste? Last year, I analyzed a honey sample that was kind of sour, or in a way bitter. And I was really surprised because I never knew that, you know, a honey sample could be sour, because naturally honey should be sweet. So I was really intrigued. We are still working on that to see some of the composition. But again, you can see here that the slide shows us several kinds of pollen grains with different colors. So what makes honey have different colors, taste, and texture? It comes from the nectar and the pollen, which we will discuss in some detail subsequently. The next slide, please. So what is the pollen or and nectar source? For you to know what is the source of the pollen that the bees feed on, you need to go microscopic. And the study that deals with that is melisopollinology, which is the study of the quantity and quality of pollen in the honey. Now, if you access these pollen grains in terms of the quality and quantity, you can use the data to determine the botanical origin of the honey as well as the geographical origin of the honey. So we can tell because of the several honey samples that we have analyzed at Ibadan and elsewhere in Lagos, in Nsukka, and several other places in Nigeria and in other parts of the world, we can tell where the honeys are from. And also we can tell what kinds of plants the bees visited to produce the honey that we have. So this technique, melisopollinology, is recognized worldwide as the least expensive and quickest way to determine the floral content and geographical origin of honey. So this is really very important for beekeepers or for bee farmers, because people would like to know what kind of plants do my bee visit, do my bees feed on to produce the honey. As we'll see later on, this is something that is very dear that should be very dear to the heart of beekeepers. Next slide, please. Yes, we are very proud of the heritage of melisopollinology in Nigeria because that is where it all started from. Almost everybody in Nigeria today that does melisopollinology started from Ibadan. And the story started in 1976. Of course, it started before then, but because the first published work was in 1976, that's what we have for that date. And the person who started is no other person than our beautiful matron, Professor Orijemie. I'm sure she's online right now because I saw her as she joined. And over the years, we have been able to build our reference collection to 3,500 collection. That is to say that at least we have 3,000, the pollen grains of 3,000 plants of Nigerian origin or West African origin in our collection. So when we find a particular pollen in a honey sample, we can easily tell what kind of plant it has come from. So that gives us a very good background, a good data bank that we can use in our studies. And this is what students use, all the time. So we are very proud of this heritage. And it's from here that we have, we can see people who have gone to other places to establish, to make themselves established, particularly in Lagos, where Dr. Orijemie and Dr. Orijemie Emuobosa have been doing very well in that area. Nsukka has been doing quite well. Kogi also has been doing quite well, just to mention a few places where melisopollinology is doing very well. Next slide, please. So bee farmers have to understand that for them to have the maximum yield of honey, there are certain things they need to know. So just a quick one, bee management is a way that people take advantage of large adult foraging population at the beginning of virginal nectar flow, so that, instead of going to the bush all the time, you can then have your bees in an apiary, in a kind of farm, and manage them in such a way that, you can get maximum yield of honey. But again, the best bee is the one that survives your management. And again, you must adapt your management to the bees. The bees will not adapt, not the bees to your environment. It's the other way around. If this is the case, as we have seen in several situations, the beekeepers must take appropriate management steps to maximize, the foraging populations. Otherwise, they will lose out, because beekeeping is a huge investment. And at the end of the day, you want to have good number or amount of volume of honey for sale or for consumption. So I'm going to tell you some of the things that you need to do to ensure that there is maximum return in your bee farm. Next slide, please. So what are the questions that a beekeeper needs to ask, or a bee farm needs to ask? The first question is, does it matter the kinds of plants I have in my bee farm? Yes, it does. If it does, what is the best way to ensure the safety and growth of the colonies in my farm? And how can I increase the productivity of my farm? So we are going to go into the nitty-gritty of these questions now. The next slide, please. The first thing I would love to say here is bees love diversity. You must know that. I think that's the way they loved, or that's the way they were created. Bees love diversity. So if you have a bee farm where you have where you practice monocropping, for example, you have a large expanse of land and you have just their maize, for example, or you have just cashew, or you have just maybe one kind of crop, bees, you won't get the best from bees. As you can see from the picture here, bees love diversity. They love to visit several kinds of plants. If you look at the honeycomb here, you see that the different cells have different colors. That's where they have stored the different pollen grains there. So it means that they have visited several kinds of plants with different kinds of pollen grains. So we should not deprive honeybees. We should not starve them. We should not make them stunted, if I may use that word. So you need lots and lots of trees or plants in your bee farm. And with this, the bees will not have to migrate very far, or the bees will have maximum use of the plants that are in your bee farm. Next slide, please. The next.
We're there.
Not there yet. Okay, so this is just a slide that shows bee pollen interactions. You may ask yourself, so why is the pollen important? You know, so there's a pictorial diagram here that shows the process of honey production. I mean, you can just look at that later. But one of the things that has been established so far is that honeybees collect pollen for nectar, and nectar, of course, for food for the entire colony. And it is this process of collection of pollen that leads to pollination. Without pollination, there will be no fertilization of food, of plants. Pollination leads to fertilization, leads to production of seeds and fruits, you know, which we all eat in the world today. So without this simple process of bees collecting pollen from one plant and fertilizing another, you know, there won't be pollination, there won't be fertilization, and there won't be food for the entire kingdom. So that's just one benefit. The second benefit is that nectar is stored in the stomach of bees, and then in the process of from the plant, as they move from the plant to the hive, the enzymes will work on it, and then it is given to another worker bee, and then it is stored in cells in honeycomb, and then it is made to ripen, you know, and on. But much more than that is that the pollen is the source of food to the young bees. In other words, if the young bees do not feed, of course they will die, as we'll see in the next slide. Yeah, I've shown it here that the pollen in the form of bee bread is the honey main source of protein. Okay, so the honey is the main source of protein, nectar is the main source of carbohydrate. So as you can see from the picture, you see a man there with his family, he's taking care of his kids. So the protein that the pollen provides is the vital is vital for brood production and development of young bees. In other words, where there is no pollen, where there is no honey, inadequate quantity, the young bees, which are the brood, they would either die off, or the hives, you know, would be abandoned. And you can see there's a sign of death there. And when this happens, it's a huge loss to bee farmers, and we don't want that to happen. The next slide, please. So what are the practicals of bee pollen interactions? So what can we take home from this? Next, please. If you see the two diagrams here, the two graphs, so to speak, you see that where there's a high quantity of pollen, the bee population is high. Where there's a low population of pollen or volume of pollen, you know, there is a low population of bees. So this is a fact, you know, that we want to take home. The second diagram shows us how pollen is built up in relation to the bee population. In other words, what we are seeing here is that where there's a diversity or there's a high quantity and quality of pollen, there's a high chance that your bee population will do very well. But the converse is the case, or the reverse is the case. You know, if you have very low pollen productivity or quantity or quality, and we don't want that to happen. So one of the things that beekeepers need to know, as I said earlier, I would like to reiterate this, is that bees love diversity. As a result, we need to have diverse number of plants in our bee farm. The next slide, please. So how do we know what plants the bees like? I mean, we cannot follow the bees everywhere they go, but as I said, that melissopollinology gives us that data and give us that idea. So melissopollinology is the form, is a technique, is a part of pollinology that deals mainly with the study of honey, the honey content, just to know what kind of pollen grains are stored. As you can see from the slide here, these are some of the pollen grains we have recovered from several honeys we have studied in Nigeria. There is quite a lot of them. So we have, right now, we have on our list close to 200 or 300 plants that we know the bees feed on. And what I call the favorite bees, plants rather, that the bees like, they're about 100 or 120. You know, I will share that later. I can send that to Mr. Femi, who can then share that to every one of us, particularly those who are really interested in bee farm. So the next slide, please. So as I said, there are about 300, 350 plants known today that the honeybees visit. But the ones that we know that they are very copious, the favorite plants, are between 100 and 120. You know, so this is something that we can give out the list. It's not a secret, and you know, farmers can then have a field day. Then, having identified these plants, the bee farmers need to cultivate these plants in their farms, or if they're already there, they need to protect them, because I'm sure that many people have bee farms in already forested areas or with good kind of vegetation. So you just need to protect those ones, and then the ones you don't have, you cultivate them. In any case, sometimes we don't have some of these things. We must ensure that, we must know that some of the plants that the bees visit are biennial. That is, we can see them twice a year, or they flower kind of twice a year. There are some that only find them once a year, which are the annuals, and then the perennials are those that last for a very long time, which are the trees. So sometimes some trees will not flower early enough, so the bees will rely on the biennials, which are the herbs and the grasses and all that. So you need to have all these in your bee farm. You don't just focus only on the trees or on the shrubs, but some of the ephemera, some of these herbs, because in the alternative, when the trees are not available, the herbs are available, and then they can get their source of, use that as a source of pollen or source of nectar. Not only are we concerned about, we're also concerned about biodiversity, because by planting or by cultivating some of these crops or protecting them, particularly in indigenous ones, you are ensuring that the indigenous population of trees or plants in Nigeria, they are sustained. And that is one of the things, one of the Millennium Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations stresses right now. The next slide, please. So this is just to show you that the vegetation around apiaries across Nigeria, as you can see, that's the vegetation map of Nigeria, which is quite, which shows you that we have, the vegetation is quite different, and then the composition of the plants in the vegetation, of course, is quite different. So for you to identify some of these plants within the area, you need a botanist or a forester to tell you what they are. And on the table here, which is to the bottom right, we have some plants, their names, botanical names, and then their habits, whether they are climbers, whether they are herbs or trees or shrubs, and then their families. So these are some of the plants that we have identified in some of the honeys that we have analyzed in Ibadan. So you need the assistance of a botanist or the assistance of a forester, or a collaboration, whichever way, to accurately identify the plants that you need, in the farm. The next slide, please. This is just a slide to show you that several apiaries are located in several locations. Here is a Guinea savanna. The other one is more or less like a forest, and this is more like a steppe or an open woodland. you know, so it doesn't really matter where you are. The principles remain the same. You still need to know what kind of plants are there, and you still need to know where the bees, you know, are foraging, what kind of plant the bees are foraging on. The next slide, please. So the beekeeping calendar. Now, this is just to show you some of the plants, honey, that we have studied in the last 5-6 years. So we have data from 2013, 2014, 2016, and 2018. So you see that for 2013, the most dominant plant that the bees visited was Elias guineensis. Same for 2014. You know, but for 2016 rather, there was a shift. It was Aspelia africana, and then for 2018, it was a mixture between Elias guineensis and then Tridas procumbens. So that's to show you that now the foraging types or the behavior rather of bees can change, you know, due to certain environmental factors. It could be rainfall, it could be human factor, you know. So the diversity of the plants you have, you know, we ensure that the bees are not starved, and then they can, you know, do their thing and produce a lot of honey for you. So imagine if we didn't have this kind of variety in this apiary, for example, this perhaps this person would have been at a great loss, you know, economically. So what I'm trying to say is that the bees do not necessarily feed on the same kind of plants in the same year. This differ. I mean, this because of course they are not robots. They have their own. They are very intelligent insects. So they determine, you know, where they want to go depending on which kind of plant gives them the best return for either the pollen or the nectar. The next, please. Pollen spectrum unique to specific region. As I said earlier, the vegetation zones in Nigeria are basically of two types: the forest in the south, savanna in the north. Again, these two major vegetation types have edaphic varieties. In the south, in the forest zone, we have the tropical rainforest, lowland rainforest, we have the freshwater swamp and then the mangrove. For the savanna region, we have the Guinea savanna, we have the Sahel savanna, and then we have the Sudan savanna. In between these two, we have the derived savanna, which is where some of the honeys also come from. But again, we see that some of these plants that are unique to some of these areas, you know, as some of which we've put here. Spongias moonbeam is the popular yeye we have in Yoruba area here, which is currently fruiting. It has this yellow fruits that has this very pungent taste, which is really very good for children. I don't know if adults still feed on them, but honeys, I mean, bees love them so much, and you find them in several honey. Cyperus is a sedge. It's close to water. There's this fruits that these northern people bring. I don't know the name in Hausa now, but it's we used to call it Hausa granite, but it's yellowish kind of, and it's really very starchy and very good. We love it so much. So you can see that these are some of the just to represent some of the plants that the bees they visit in southern Nigeria. The next one, please. The next one is in Ibadan, and Ibadan is more or less Guinea savanna and secondary forest. So the bombax, which is a very popular one, and then Alconia, of course, is representative of the honeys that we find here. So the bees in these areas love these trees or these plants. Next one, please. The next one is Nsukka, I believe, which is in southeastern Nigeria. We also have Guinea savanna. So some of the two part of the plants that we find that the bees love to visit, Parinari as well as Lania. So these are the pollen grains that are shown here. The next slide, please. The next one is Kaduna, which is in northern Nigeria, and acacia is one of the plants that the bees love to visit, as well as protea. So if you have an acacia plant around you, just know that these are the bees will come visiting, and you need to cultivate this if you don't have. And then these are just some of the ones that we find. There are much more than this, but just because of space and because of time that we have, just a representation. Next one, please. Yes, this is something that we will need to talk about because I'm aware that if you want to export your honey to the West, one of the protocols is that they need to ensure that your honey doesn't contain whether pesticides or herbicides. And this paper, which I saw recently, shows that you can use pollen, to track pesticide residues in plants. It has not been tried yet in Ibadan or anywhere else, as far as I know. But this is a very fertile ground for future research. And I'm sure that Lagos and Ibadan representatives are watching, and then this is something I'm sure that they can take up, and we can assist one another in this regard. The next slide, please. So some of the bee management decisions that we need to take, or bee farmers need to take. You need to know your hive type. I'm sure that most bee farmers use the common, the Lanthro type or the Kenya top bar hive that we have. I know people still use traditional ones, but well, depends on the economy of the individual, And then the bee farmer also needs to think through to understand the plant communities in the area where the hive is located. He or she also needs to have a comprehensive bee phenology. That is, what are the local nectar and pollen plant sources that the bees visit or forage on. Then there is a need for a beekeeping calendar. We need to have that every year. That's why we analyze honeys every year, to have that calendar, because we know that the bees visit different kinds of plants in different years. So this is very good for unifloral honey. Unifloral honey is the honey that contains basically where the honey is dominated by one, not 100%, but is dominated by at least 50% or more, one pollen type, and you can use that in branding or labeling your honey. And then we also need to know that the pollen spectrum is unique to different regions. Nigeria has different regions. I mean, even Ibadan, where I am, the pollen spectra in Ibadan, of course, is going to be very different from the ones in Ibadan, the University of Ibadan, different from the one in town, and different kinds of town. And of course, as I said earlier, you need this to for your labeling or for your branding, for your marketing, in terms of your honey. Your honey contains XYZ pollen, and because you know that this is what is contained in the honey, then we can say this honey is good for XYZ. I mean, my senior colleagues in Lagos has done something very fantastic by analyzing the particular pollen in the honey to see what kind of property it confers on the honey. And he and his students were able to see that the medicinal properties in pollen confers on the honey, that medicinal property. I'm sure he's still working. I'm talking about Dr. Adende Ikoko and his student. They are still working on this, but it's important. The Manuka honey is special to New Zealand and part of Australia. This honey is produced in these areas basically from the Manuka plant, and because of the medicinal properties of the pollen of this plant, it confers on the honey that property, which makes it really very expensive and sought for. Next slide, please. So here, there's a need for collaboration. As I've written here, the Department of Archaeology and Anthropology offers melisopollenology services, whether to beekeepers or to researchers. We are very open. We've been doing this for years now. I've been doing it for, I think this is my 17th year of analyzing honey, because I started out basically when I started doing my master's in 2003. So this is my 17th year. I'm sure my senior colleagues are far more experienced than myself, I've had more experience than myself. Professor Shomi has been analyzing honey for only God knows how long, over 50 years. So Ibadan is, very, very open to collaboration. And we also would like to tell beekeepers or bee farmers that if they can come in groups or in associations it will make it easier. We can then analyze the samples for them at low cost, and then give them feedback and give them the data which you can use, you know, to have optimal yields of honey and to get maximum benefits in terms of economy or in terms of consumption of honey in their farms. We also offer postgraduate courses, master's courses and PhD courses for those who would like to collaborate with us, who don't have these facilities in their universities, but they have honeys that they want to, you know, analyze. We've been doing this with Zaria. I can see Judith is online with us. Ibe, she's with us. So we've been doing it online. We're doing it with in Zaria. We've also been working with some people in Ekiti State University, and I think University of Ekiti, I believe. So we are open, and we have several master students who are also keen on doing their research in this area, and we can supervise them, and of course we can get maximum benefit from these collaborations. Next, please. Next, Mr. Femi. So what are the conclusions that we can take home? The very first thing is honey is a sweetly lucrative business. If we want to go into the economies of honey, I mean, we'll spend a whole day doing that, but it's a very lucrative business, and it's also very sweet. This is the time that we need to cut down on our sugars, refined sugars, because it's not very healthy, very healthy for us, particularly if you're above 40, 50, you need to really cut down on refined sugars and focus on honey. Nigerian beekeepers are also blessed because Nigeria still contains a lot of indigenous African plants that honeybees love, which I call favorite plants that the honeybees like. So we are blessed. You just need to update, you know, your record, and then cultivate more if you don't have, or protect the ones that you have, and then you will see that there will be an increase in the volume of honey that you produce every year, or every quarter, or every 6 months that you harvest, depending on how you harvest the honey in your hives. And then you also, as I said, there need to be an increased presence of cultivation of plants in your apiaries to boost production. And then there needs to be collaboration between beekeepers and palynologists, which is very essential. You know, I need to stress this because there has to be this synergy, because we need to communicate back to beekeepers some of the science that we have in a language that they understand, as we have done here, we are doing currently, because beekeepers need information from palynologists. We also need data, you know, or materials from beekeepers, so that this synergy can be a win-win situation for us. And this is what is done in other parts of the world, in the US and in Europe, you know. So I don't think Nigeria should be an exception, or West Africa should be an exception. So this collaboration should continue, and I'm sure we're going to get the maximum benefit from it. The next, please. I would like to acknowledge many persons, but please forgive me. First, I would like to acknowledge Professor Shomi, who is my teacher, my mentor. This is a woman that I cannot stop talking about. If I were to talk about her, I'm sure we will not go home. Professor Von Bryant, in 2008, got in touch with me concerning some honey samples he had taken from Kenya. And incidentally, at that time, I had analyzed some samples from that area. So I was able to give him some of the names, you know, to the pollen in the honey. And that's how we struck a relationship. He's a very, very senior palynologist. I think he's in his 70s, close to 80 at the moment. He's still working, although he's a little bit challenged in terms of health at the moment. But he's been a fantastic person, and to date, he still sends me articles that he's written, and then I also keep in touch. I would like to thank Early Produce Limited, with whom we've been working for the past 7 years. We started working in 2013, if you can remember. So it's been a long time. And they keep sending samples to us, and we are very grateful to them. Youth for Apiculture Initiative, YFAI, thank you for putting this together. We are really very grateful. We would like this to continue. This is really very good. the last but not the least slide. I want to thank everybody for listening to us, and I hope we have gained one or two things. We will continue to engage with beekeepers and also relevant stakeholders, because Nigeria spends a lot of money, about 2 billion, I think, in importing dollars in importing honey. There's no need for that. If we invest in our local content, I'm sure we'll be exporting in large quantity in the next future. Thank you very much for the time. I'm grateful.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emuobosa, for a highly informative talk. I would also like to thank Professor Showumi, who I had the pleasure of meeting several times at the University of Ibadan, who has also been to our farm in Iwo, in our apiary. She was very, very patient with us. We learned a lot from her. So I'm very grateful that she's on the platform to see the fruits of some of the seeds she'd sown in Dr. Emuobosa, and also the interest she showed to us many years ago when she made that visit. Dr. Emuobosa, thank you very much for your talk. I got my major takeaways from the talk are diversity. In order to enable beekeepers to have sustainable operations, it's very important that we have diversity of plants, and it's important also that we look after the long-term survival of our honeybees. And we can only do this by knowing what we are planting. It's not enough to focus on how many hives I have, how many equipment I have. The key thing to beekeeping is really the environment. Without the environment, you don't have bees. So we encourage all our beekeepers to really think very long and hard about the types of crops they have on their farms or their apiaries, and make sure that they have as diverse diverse selection of plants as possible. We will open the floor for questions, but before that, I would like Youths for Apiculture Initiatives to at least have a word here and introduce themselves. We didn't get them to introduce themselves at the start, so maybe Yusuf Adeyemo, the president of that organization, can say a few words if he's available. No, if we don't have them, then okay. Yusuf, are you?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, please. I want to confirm. Thanks for the presentation, wonderful presentation. I appreciate. Please, I want to confirm the presentation. You said the honey has 0 fat. From the list of the things that honey contains, I saw where he was to include the fat. Is this an oversight or is really a confirmation that honey has 0 fat? I just wanted to confirm that.
Well, if you just hold on a second, I would like to find out first and foremost, we will answer your question. I want to find out if the representative for Youth for Apiculture is available to say a few words. If not, then we will carry on. Okay. So, Doctor, would you like to address that question?
Hello, madam.
Hello, Dr. Emuobosa. There was a question addressed to you.
Okay, yes, thank you. Can everybody hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Honey does not contain fat or cholesterol. think that's
that was I think that was the answer to that question.
yes. It doesn't. Honey doesn't contain fat or cholesterol. That's straight up. But if the young gentleman has an alternative answer with evidence, I mean, we're all here to learn. I mean, we can take that. But as far as I know, honey doesn't contain fat or cholesterol.
Thank you for that. We're now in the Q&A section. So I see one or two people that have raised their hands wanting to ask a question. We have a guest called Yemisi. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me, please? Good afternoon.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry, I joined the meeting very late, but towards the ending, I heard you talking about diversity and then, encouraging the beekeepers on the kind of plants to have in their apiary. In encouraging the beekeepers, I want to suggest, if it is possible, to have lists of some of these plants that are bee friendly, so that these farmers, I'm a beekeeper and a forester, so that these beekeepers, we actually know the kind of plants to raise in their apiary. So I don't know if you can have an album like that will tell us bee-friendly plants, because as I'm with you, like I said, I'm a forester, but I doubt if I really know the type of plants that these bees really want. So that, because at times they will tell you they prefer palm trees or gracidia. I think we should have some researches in order to help the beekeepers, and I'm one of them. Thank you so much. I don't know who to direct the question to. Like I said, I joined late, about 5 minutes ago.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the question. Dr. Emuobosa, you can please respond to that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Yemisi, for your question. We had said at the very beginning, or the initial stages of this presentation, that so far in Nigeria, we have a list of at least 300 plants that bees visit in Nigeria. The list is available. But the favorite plants that they love is between 100 and 120. And I had said that, well, I'm going to share this list so that bee farmers can have access to it. So that is available. We are going to share it. I think that answers your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Yemisi, I will share that list on the Beekeeping for Nigeria platform and also the Youth for Apiculture initiatives. I'll share both lists. But if you're not on either platform, WhatsApp group, you can send your email to this in the chat, or to our email address. I'll share that at the end, and we'll share the list with you. That's not a problem. We'll get the list from Dr. Emuobosa and share that with you.
I'm grateful. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We have another question from someone called, there's someone called Techno W3. If you don't mind, can you just put your name in there so at least we know who you are? Once you do that, then we'll entertain the question. Mr. Bernard Ojiambo, please ask your question. Unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Malik. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I just joined the meeting late. Yeah, this is Bernard Ojiambo from Kenya, and I'm an apiculturalist. I'm not that old into the industry. It's just like 4 years. But I'm also a researcher as well. And yeah, if I can get as I was jetting in, I get some slideshow. Please, can you get some through my email?
Yes, if you we'll share the email address at the end of this.
Okay.
If you can just send me your email. I don't want, I'm a bit reluctant to ask people to put their email addresses on the chart because it's quite public. So if you're not, if you don't want to share your email address in public, you can then send it to us on our email address, which I'll share at the end of this.
I have a question.
Okay.
For now in Kenya, we are trying to feed our bees. There's little forage around, and I'm trying to come up with some pollen patties, which I've tried to mix some peanuts. I've tried to mix, but they're eating slow. Maybe is there anyone in the group who has tried and who has fed his bees and they are doing well? Can he or she share the recipe? That's the first question. Thanks.
With regards to the bee feed, we have quite a number of experts on the platform. What I would suggest is that I can put you in contact with one of them. You know, at least one or two that are on the platform. I can put you in contact with them. I've made a note of your of your name, and then we'll put you through to the right person there.
Thanks, Malik.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated.
You're welcome, sir. The next person is, I have a question. Youth for Apiculture, you've raised your hand. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question? So there is someone, there's a gentleman here that says Youth for Apiculture, you've raised your hand to ask a question. Can you ask your question?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Femi. I am Akimboye Anuoluwapo. So my question is still on the diversity. I know in melisopalinology, if you are interested in getting a monoflora honey. Sorry, please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Go ahead.
Yeah. To get a monoflora honey, you have to have at least one of the plant's pollen concentration has to be at least 45% of the total pollen count. So on trying to have a monoflora honey, you don't need much of plant diversity around. And the speaker has encouraged and he said it is the best way to practice beekeeping. So what if you are interested in a particular or you want to have a monoflora honey and probably your apiary in a plantation, is it not good to do that, or you still have to have some other plants around the apiary? That is my question.
Okay, if I may answer. Thank you very much for asking. Yes, you are correct that there is no honey that contains 100% of just one type of pollen. I think that exists in nature. So if you want to have a monoflora or uniflora honey, yes, if you're interested in that, you can, have a plantation of let's say, of cashew, and then have the bees, feed on them, and then they produce. But again, what is the motive behind having a uniflora honey? Why would you want to have a uniflora honey? For example, if I am a honey consumer, and you tell me that this is a monoflora honey, and I ask, what is the benefit, or why is it unique from others? I think you should also have that at the back of your mind, because I don't think it's just fanciful to have uniflora or monoflora honey. There must be something at the back of your mind why you want to engage in that. So that is one of the things I think the beekeeper, the bee farmer should have at the back of your mind.
Okay, thank you. Again, sorry, still on the uniflora honey. When you have a honey from your apiary as uniflora honey, and you have the plants, the plants that has the dominant pollen concentration, does it mean that all the benefit of this plant is in the honey directly? Like all the health benefits of this plant? Maybe, for instance, you have cashew as the dominant pollen in the honey, does it mean that all the health benefit of the cashew plant is in the honey?
No, I don't think that would be correct.
Okay.
What would be of benefit is, or would be two. What is contained? What is the chemical composition of the nectar? What would be in the nectar cannot be in every part of the plant, of course. You know, of course, as you know, the nectar is just in the flower.
Yes.
So what would be in the leaves, what would be in the stem, what would be in the roots will be completely or slightly different. And again, what would be in the pollen? You know, I mentioned in the presentation that a senior colleague of mine has analyzed the pollen, the dominant pollen in a particular honey to see what it confers on the honey. And they found out that that particular pollen it contributes a huge percentage to the medicinal property of that honey.
Okay.
You know, so that is just an aspect of it. There are several things one can do, you know, but you know, as you rightly know, research is still ongoing, and many people have data, but maybe not public yet. I mean, in the public domain, they've not published them. They have them in archives or things like that. So we are just speaking to what we have at the moment. You know, so what would be in the honey would be what is contained in both the nectar and the pollen.
Okay.
I think that is what is most important.
Thank you. Why I asked this question is because I did a melisopalinological analysis on some honey samples at University of Ilorin, and one of the samples has Vitellaria paradoxa, that's the shea plant, the shea butter plant, as the dominant pollen. So people have been asking that, does it mean that all like this honey has the health benefit of this shea plant? So I don't really know. That is why I'm asking that. Could it be true that it will contain all the health benefits, or probably some of the benefits of the Vitellaria paradoxa plants?
Well, it's a possibility, but we need to do the chemical composition of that to know.
Okay.
If you do the chemical composition of the pollen and then that of the honey, you compare, and then I can tell you, or you can find out, you know, I mean, chemistry can do that quite straight away. Not necessarily chemistry, I mean, biochemistry can do this straight away. That's what I mean.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
So there's another question from the Star Farmer. Please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Good day, everyone. Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, so one of my questions, I think the youth in APR have asked the question I've asked already. What I wanted to confirm is about the pesticides. You spoke about pesticides. Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good, about having samples of pesticides in the honey. So I wanted to ask, are there a particular pest, because this flora and fauna, some of them are crops we plant. Maybe we make use of them some of the time. So how do we manage, say, weed and maybe other insects in our farms, or as we plant this flora in the beehives? How do you manage the weed in this stuff? Because the easiest way some of the time is to spray chemicals. When you spray, maybe the bees will die or stuff like that. So I want to know what's the best way to manage weed and then maybe other insects in your flora. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Dr. Emuobosa, you can volunteer an answer to that, but I know I have my opinion on that.
Anyway, I think what you call weeds might be very beneficial to the honeybees. You know, because you do not know, to you see it as unwanted plant, but it might be of immense benefit to the bees. For example, Tridus procumbens is more or less a weed.
Yes.
But is of immense benefit. It's one of the favorite plants that the bees visit. Aspelia africana. You know, these are what we call weeds. You know, they're by the roadside. We cut them down. they are not important to us, so to speak, as human beings, but to the honeybee, fantastic, you know? So the way I would approach this is, you don't necessarily have to weed, your farm. I know you don't want your farm to turn to a very overgrown forest and all that, but I think the best way is not to use pesticide or herbicides, because at the end of the day, I'm sure that these will be contributing to what you have in the honey. So leave them alone, or, you can trim, you can prune, things like that. But using pesticide or herbicide, I don't think that's the best way, And don't forget that these are chemicals which have adverse effects, or which will have adverse effects, not just on the plants, on the soil, on groundwater, things, that we do not really see at the moment. So I know it's easy to use herbicide to kill off the weeds and all that, but at the end of the day, we don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for that. The staff, I know, as with your answer, Doctor, a lot of the farmers on the forum would be quite disappointed. But this is a fact of life. We're not here to tell you how to farm. We're just trying to ask you that if you have bees on your farm, if you have bees in your apiary, that spraying chemicals to kill weeds or spraying chemicals to do other functions on your farm may adversely affect your bee population. So it's a decision you as a beekeeper has to make. We cannot offer that. I know from my experience that several honey analysis several pollen analysis that we've done over the years with the University of Ibadan with Dr. Emuobosa and Professor Orijemie, when we look at the results, we see a lot of weeds there that have helped boost the pollen count in our honey. And I can only imagine that if we were to weed those plants away, that would adversely affect my bees. So it's a decision that the beekeeper has to make. Do I clean my farm of weeds and my bees suffer from that, or do I keep a healthy balance of weeds and other plants as well to keep my bee population going? So it's a decision you have to make, and I hope you make the right one.
I've made the right one already. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I will just try and, we have 15 minutes left on this for questions and answers. So I'll go to Mr. Mohammed Babashani. Sorry, I hope I pronounced your name properly. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to ask, is there such a thing as organically produced honey? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Doctor, do you want to answer that? Organically produced honey. I think there was a talk yesterday that addressed that.
Okay. If I understand him very well, I think he's speaking from the perspective of GMOs versus naturally produced honeys. If I think that's where he's going. Yes. Well, organic in this sense would mean natural, I think. So the only natural way I know honey is produced is through bees. There might be artificial means, you never can tell what the human mind, can come up with. But organically, I think that's the only way that is safe for us. That's what I know. If there are other means,
I think, sorry to interrupt you, Doctor. Yesterday, there was a talk that was organized by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council in conjunction with YFAI, where they spoke about organic honey, and the conditions for that, the requirements for organic honey are quite stringent. First, you have to be certified, and the certification process is something that you need to be aware of. I would suggest, if you're interested in that, I would suggest that you send us an email. We'll put you in touch with the Youth for Apiculture Initiative that organized that talk, and also the relevant organization that can advise you better on that. But there is such a thing as organic honey, yes. Mr. Akonde Ayoade, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, the anchor and the our resource person. My question is very straightforward. One of my friends has asked about the mesopalynology of some plants, and I want to actually ask if any analysis has been carried out on granulated honey, because for over, let's say, 6 or 7 years ago now, we have been seeing granulated honey directly from the hive. And now looking at it, there could be a lot of factors responsible for that, I'm so much keen or I'm interested in knowing those things. But I want to ask if any analysis have been done on a granulated honey, because the reason why I'm asking this question is I believe that climate change, that is rise in temperature, has to do with this kind of change in the feature of the honey. So I could see in 2011 I saw a granulated honey. That was my first experience, and it wasn't much, like 25%. But in 2016, I got almost 90% of granulated honey from most of my hives. So, and it's really shocking. And last year or last 2 years, another experience came up. So I want to know, because now I'm trying to tailor it towards if mesopalynology test or analysis is carried out, be able to know the dominant, what is it called, the dominant tree or nectar or pollen that is responsible for that. Then we'll be able to carry out, because we know from some articles that glucose is the one that makes honey granulate. It's more than fructose percentage. So if one can tailor it towards that side, I'll be very happy to know if any analysis like that have been carried out on granulated honey. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Ayode.
Yes.
Prof,
If I may
Doctor,
respond?
yeah, please
Yes,
go ahead.
Yeah, very good question. First of all, I would like to disabuse the minds of people that believe that granulated honey is fake honey. No, that is not the case. Honey sometimes becomes granulated because of certain factors, environmental factors or chemical factors. Chemically, as he said, if we have a higher percentage of glucose more than fructose, it can become granulated. Whether any granulated honey has been analyzed, well, it's possible. I don't know. I have not analyzed any, as I know, but I think it's something that we can take up, and it's something that it can readily be done. I mean, within a few days, the results can be produced. So I'm sure that other persons, there are other palynologists in the forum right now. They might have analyzed such, so they might be able to give advice or give data on that. But there's nothing wrong in granulated honey at all. I think people should know that it's the same thing with any kind of honey. Then I think if I may just speak a bit about the organic honey, I think the government is trying to promote honeys without chemicals, or where in a farm, apiaries that don't apply chemicals to apiaries or to honey in honey production. I think that's part of what the government is trying to achieve. Well, that is also what we advocate, but I know that people have their own ways of achieving their own things, you know. So that's part of what I would like to respond to that question.
Thank you very much. I have time for one more question, and then I would like, if Professor Showumi is available, if she is willing to say something, I would like to have some closing words from her after the last question. So if she's available, it would be greatly appreciated. It wasn't planned, and I apologize for putting her on the spot. But after the next question, which will be the final question, I would like Professor Showumi to say some words. So Mr. Olufemi Ariyo, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Thank you very much. It's been an awesome presentation, and really enjoyed uh, the level of information in the content. I would like, my question is two-pronged. First, I would appreciate if we can get a copy of that presentation in PowerPoint slide. I've dropped my email for the list of plants that are favorable and enjoyable by bees. The second question is, so I had the opportunity to attend Epimundia in Turkey in 2017. And one key to export is maintaining color of the honey. And I was trying to ask here, what particular things are responsible for coloration, consistency of honey production?
Dr. Woody, I also have my opinion on that, but Doctor, if you can you answer that question?
Can I answer?
If you will, I mean, please go
Yes,
ahead.
yes. I mean, it's really very fascinating because it's part of the talk. I mentioned it earlier. Thank God we are going to share the PowerPoint to everyone who is interested. So what the different colors of honey is achieved as a result of a combination of two things, the pollen and the nectar, mainly of course the pollen, because pollen comes in different colors. If you see this slide, you see, I was surprised to see that we could have more or less colorless honey. Some honey samples are really dark colored. Some are almost yellowish. Some are golden in color. Some are, brownish kind of. It's the content. It's the kinds of plants they visit for the collection of both nectar and honey that, confers on them or on the honey these different, these diverse colorations or colors that they possess. So it is a standard thing and it's beautiful. I mean, if certain honeys are bland, I mean, they just have the same type of color, I mean, it won't be very interesting, it will be very fascinating. But here in Nigeria, we can count quite a diverse array of colors that honeys have. And it's because of the kinds of plants they visit for both the nectar and the pollen. So we've mentioned this earlier. You find this more when the PowerPoint is shared to you, Mr. Aria.
Thank you, Dr. Emuobosa. Thank you. I think Professor Showumi is ready to speak to us. I really appreciate the honor. Please go ahead. You have to unmute your mic first so that you can talk to us.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Malik. Good afternoon. I think this is very, very heartening indeed. And I'm really delighted to have been part of this presentation. It's been an absolutely brilliant presentation. And I was saying to myself, now I can say, nunc dimittis, that, if you see what I mean, that the seed that we planted in 1976 has become a giant Iroko tree. And it's so fascinating to see all the various dimensions into which people have veered from just knowing the botanical and geographical origin. So I'm really heartened, and I thank. I didn't recognize that I knew you as Kensington. I didn't quite.
Yes, Femi Kensington. That's my name.
Yeah, so I was surprised when I saw Malik Oluwafe. Who is this? But when you were talking about the whole thing, I then quickly recognized that you are the one. I'm so happy that you are still collaborating with Emuobo very much. And I'm really delighted that municipality has really grown. One question I would like to ask, actually, you were talking about this export promotion. Was it a Zoom meeting yesterday?
Yes.
Have they thought of involving municipalinologists in ascertaining the quality of honey? I don't know. Is there any talk? I know that one of my former students John Ajipe tried to contact NAFDAC, but there were so many bottlenecks. So I don't know. I mean, it's very, very essential that medicinal-pollinologists must be involved in the quality control of honey. Are you aware of what steps are being taken to ensure that medicinal-pollinologists are involved in the certification of honey? I don't know. That's very, very important. I know we've not been too much forward going proactive to get government to recognize us and make us their consultants. But are you aware of any move to involve us in this quality control and certification of honey? That's what I would like to ask. Apart from that, I thank you very much for this initiative. It's been really very, very elucidating, very informative. And Emuobosa has really done us very proud, and I'm very happy at the very well-rounded, comprehensive presentation. So are you aware of that? Because I think there should be, I know PAN, which is the Palynological Association of Nigeria, can approach government and say that, look, you cannot have certification on the quality of honey without involving medicinal palynologists. So are you aware of that? Are they thinking along that line at all?
I'm not very familiar with the process, Ma.
Yes, yes.
It's something
but
that's
essential. You cannot have.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree that you cannot have a
So maybe,
certification without pollen identification
precisely,
or pollen
yes.
analysis.
So maybe we should be more proactive and find a means of approaching whoever is in charge. I know there may be all these civil service protocols, but we just have to insist that we have to be involved. I mean, it's not that we are looking for their money, but if you say this honey is from Nigeria, and you say this is Ilias guineensis honey or something like that, and people start finding bombax and gazophora and other things there. We say, where are the palynologists in Nigeria? So I believe that we must insist on their involving us. I don't know what strings to pull in this regard, but
I think that there are some officials from the body on some of the platforms that we belong to, and we will just pass that on to them.
Yes.
At least even if the direct link is through Dr. Emuobosa, then at least they can have that contact with him.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you so much. It's been really very, very rewarding. I really feel very elated and very excited about this whole thing. And I hope younger ones will really get busy and go into all those areas that Emuobosa mentioned where we have not yet ventured into, like looking at the pesticides and so on.
Thank you very much, man.
So much, Femi. Thank you so much.
You.
I really appreciate your efforts.
Thank
you. And thank you very much, Emuobosa, too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you. It's a pleasure, man.
Okay. So we're in the final stretches of this presentation. I have shared the contact for Ethel Produce. If you want to receive the plant list, please send an email to us. I would also look at the email list in the comments section and try and get as much of those and send you the list once I receive that from Dr. Emuobosa. I would like to thank everyone, especially Dr. Emuobosa, for presenting this informative material to us, taking time out. I know you've been very busy. Thank you very much for providing us with the presentation and the information.
Thank you.
And answering our questions. Once again, I'd like to thank also Youth for Apiculture Initiative. I think we wanted someone from that organization to say something and at least introduce themselves, but unfortunately we weren't able to get that. All the people who wrote questions in the chat section, as you can see.
Hello, Mr. Femi.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I think I've chatted. This is Yusuf, the president from the Youth for Apiculture Initiative.
Mr. Adeyemo, please, I would ask, we'll spend the last 2 minutes. We're already over time, and I don't want to keep people longer, but please go ahead and introduce yourself, introduce your organization, and hopefully people can can get to see, can get to hear from you directly.
No problem. Thank you very much. I just want to commend your efforts and the presenters. I don't have much anything today, but I want to go with the last things that the prof said. I think Mr. Femi, what the prof said is very, very key. And I think we can also help from this to make sure the biologists are part of this team for these certifications. I think that's just what I just want to say. I joined the meeting late, but I've been following the presentation since. But not to waste much of the time, I appreciate everyone for the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adeyemo. Well, to everyone else that has joined, and I hope it's been an informative session for you. Please keep an eye on our Facebook page, a Twitter handle, LinkedIn, even the emails. We will organize more talks in the future. They may not necessarily be beekeeping related directly, but they will have a beekeeping aspect to it. There are a number of experts in Nigeria in beekeeping. Some of them are on the platform. I apologize for not having the time to introduce them specifically, but they are there. We do have them, and if we can get together and work with each other, the Nigerian beekeeping industry would be a lot more productive and be a force to reckon with, not just in Africa, but in the world itself. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed the session, and I look forward to speaking with you or hearing from you on our social media handles, and also joining us in our next talk. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for your initiative, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Malik. We are looking forward for more meetings, please.
Thank you very much.